greatest sports debate show on the internet.
I will take my victory lap now because who was the one that was saying the Buffalo Bills window is closed? Oh yeah, that's right. It was me.
Championship rings. Starring Brandon Lewis.
Wait a minute, who's the one that didn't see Brandon Cooks clearly has the ball in his hand, goes down to the ground with one knee on the ground, and then that's when they say, it's an interception!
And Georgia.
Honestly, I'd rather watch AHL All-Star stuff than the NBA All-Star game.
Begins now.
Who is that I see on the other end of my screen? He's back! Welcome back, Ungar to the Match. Josh Ungar, the host of the Sports Room Talk Show.
I should have come storming through like Stone Cold.
Well, I mean, you have been in your international travels over the past couple of weeks, and thank you to Jalen Sandvik and Voltage Live colleague, the host of Fits on Sports, Sean Fitzgerald, for filling in for you. I know you were commenting a little bit a couple weeks ago. I know you had a lot of fun overseas, but we're back tonight, and we were talking a little bit before we went on the air here. This has been a long, exciting April so far, and it's only going to get better as the month goes on.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I was not able to watch any of March Madness while I was overseas in Germany. Couldn't find it at all. So thankfully I have YouTube, so I was able to watch highlights and, you know, keep it in the loop that way. But yeah.
So I found this tournament, and I'm sorry to say it because you didn't see a lot of it, as you said. I thought it was one of the best March Madness tournament, at least on the men's side, we've had in years. I didn't care about the fact that we didn't have a Florida Gulf Coast or like, Chicago or a Butler as a Cinderella. You know, Iowa, I thought, pulled off the big upset, obviously, knocking off Florida in the round of 32. But obviously, they're not a Cinderella because of NIL. And I think that this is going to be, we saw it a little bit last year. We had all four number one seeds, and people complained about it. And we didn't get that this year. You know, we got 2 1 seeds. We got a 2 seed, and I believe a 3 seed in Illinois in the Final Four. But I think this is what you're going to see moving forward. I think it's going to be big brands. I think it's going to be guys that enter the transfer portal going to these teams to win a championship. And Dusty May in his second season at Michigan had one of the most complete college basketball teams I've seen. And quite frankly, I thought they in Arizona were the 2 best college basketball teams I saw all year long. I thought that was going to be the real national championship game. Like we said, the NFC championship game was this year between the Rams and the Seahawks. And Michigan just stomped Arizona by 30. And, you know, I know people were saying that Michigan did not look that good in the conference tournament. I'm a big believer that they felt like they were going to be a number 1 seed already. They didn't have to put their effort as much into the conference tournament. They wanted to be healthy for the postseason. Howard gave them a little bit of scare in the first half, and then they just went bonkers. And my one concern about this Michigan winning is, and I don't have a problem with them, I thought they were a very likable team, but all of their starters were transfers. And so now we know sports is a copycat league in all sports. Our team's going to try to recreate what Michigan did, which basically let's go in the transfer portal, and college basketball is going to become even more of a free agency madness.
Yeah, but it's not just like you can go into the transfer portal and get anybody. Think about it. Michigan found the right pieces for their team. It's not like they just went, oh, we're going to get that guy and we're going to get that guy and hope they go together. No, they found guys that they felt like could work. Like Elliot Cadeau, who transferred from North Carolina. You had the 2 big men. I think one transferred over, I forget what school it was.
Well, that's the thing about Michigan, right? Is they add both guard play. They add two bigs. They could steal the ball. They could shoot threes. They could play great defense. I think with like a couple minutes left in the game last night, they only had made one three.
I
And
don't think
real
they made a single 3-pointer in the first half, if I'm not mistaken.
correct. UConn outshot them by 5 threes, but the difference was Michigan was up 22-8 with points in the paint. And that's the interesting thing for me, Josh. I've said it, on this show or the last couple of weeks while you were away. I have found it so fascinating watching March Madness and watching college basketball because it is a complete 180 from watching the NBA. I mean, in the NBA, it's unheard of now for you to not only make one three in the span of 5 minutes, let alone the entire first half of a basketball game, and it really was refreshing to watch, and just the talent that Michigan had, I thought was all over the place, and I thought Dusty May did a great job, really, at showing why he is going to be considered now, along with Dan Hurley, Bill Self, Tom Izzo, Patino, Shire, as one of these top upper echelon coaches in the sport.
Let's give credit to, I think you say it is Yaxel Lindenberg, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
The dude was basically playing on one leg.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be Arizona saving grace in the Final Four. I thought it was going to give Arizona an opening to come back in the game, and they made a little bit of run. And then in the second half, Yasso came out. He hit 2 threes right away and pretty much ended the night. And you could tell just the pain on that kid's face. But again, this is why I think some people love college more than pro sports, because unless it is like the championship game, like the Super Bowl or a game 7, you don't see most pro athletes, I would say in this day and age, fighting through pain. Most times guys come out, they're being looked at by trainers. This guy did not care what his stat line is. He wanted to be out there for his teammates. I don't think he'd care if it were to tank his draft stock or anything of that nature.
Yeah, I don't think so. This is the Big Ten's basically third consecutive championship because UCLA won the women's national championship.
Well, let's be real, it's kind of their fifth in the last 2-3 years, because we've had back college football national champions. Now you have UCLA winning the women's championship, and they were number 2 to UConn, so it wasn't like that was a total shock. And then you had obviously Michigan, who was again a co-favorite, I would say, along with Arizona and Duke to win it. But the NIL is the Big Ten era. And, we talk a lot about the SEC in college football, and we talk a lot about the Big 12 in college basketball. Both of those conferences in both sports, I believe, are now inferior to the Big Ten. I think in this tournament alone, the Big Ten had, 6 teams in the Sweet 16. I believe it was 4 teams in the Elite 8. And name, image, and likeness, when you have big brands such as Wisconsin, Ohio State, UCLA, Michigan, in football, your Penn State Nifty Lions. Oregon, who should be back, I would think, in the basketball universe next year. They're
USC.
loaded. USC, yeah. They're loaded. The Illinois now in basketball as well. They're Purdue. They're loaded. Indiana made both, obviously. So they're loaded. They've got money and they're using it the right way, and they're in the Midwest. And the other thing is they're cross country, right? It's California, it's Ohio, it's Indiana. The Big Ten now is pretty much cross country, and I think that's helped it.
I would agree with you. This is the first time the Big Ten has won the national championship
since 2000. Tom Izzo's Michigan State team.
Correct.
And by the way, I thought Michigan State and UConn was a great game for the Sweet 16. If Michigan State would have came back and won that game, I thought they had a good shot. I mean, I wasn't a big believer in Purdue. Illinois, I thought Illinois played well. I kind of said the way they played against Iowa, I thought they'd get blown out by UConn. So I thought they held their own. But college sports right now is really at the apex of the Big Ten, and this may help some of the other sports that they have. Not only just baseball and stuff, but maybe people see how successful Michigan's been at football and basketball, and maybe there's a girl out there who wants to go play softball or wants to go swim or curl or whatever because of the success that these programs are having with NIL.
Michigan men's hockey is doing well as well. From what I understand, don't quote me on that, but
the other thing is, I find it very interesting. We talk about rivalries a lot on this show. What do you think the fan base of Ohio State is thinking right now? Because I know they got their national championship in football, but really over the past 5 years, Michigan has bested them, not only in the field in football, but now Michigan's clearly better than them now at basketball too. That doesn't got to make them feel good. I wonder if those start investing more in the basketball program.
I would think so. I think this definitely adds more fuel to the fire for Michigan State. And on that note, think about this. The 2027 men's Final Four is going to be at Ford Field.
It's in Detroit, yeah. I'll be honest with you. That's the one thing I will say. I'm not a fan of basketball games being played in football arenas. It looks weird to me. On television and the floor, you obviously have the raised floor, which has been brought up for concern specifically in our floor in Cleveland. It just, there's that whole row back where there's a bunch of media, like it's a big event. And it just feels like basketball to me is meant to be played in a small confined arena.
Yeah, but I get that because, the women's Final Four and the national championship, this year's was played at the Suns Arena. I think they're going to be doing it at the Blue Jackets Arena in Columbus in the next few years.
And this is something I did not know about the women, that they do play. I know at least the first couple rounds are played at their home arena. They don't travel like the men do.
Correct. And they don't, they get to play on their home floors. Of course, the other games are played on that same court, so those teams do have to travel, but nonetheless. Yeah. Well, but, if Florida had advanced to play Houston, that basically would have been a home game for Houston going against the defending national champions, because that game was played at the Toyota Center in Houston. But, no, I get what you're saying, but the men's Final Four is that big where I don't think it would work in an NBA arena. You saw 70,000
I mean, obviously, the more people you can get in the arena, you're going to do it.
Yeah. But what I was trying to get at is the men's Final Four next year is at Ford Field where the Lions play. Could you imagine if we got a Michigan national championship?
Or even just a March Madness. Well, I guess it had to be the national championship. I don't know what I was thinking there, but yeah, it'd be great. It'd be a rare thing. Obviously, there was a possibility of it this year, and I think moving forward, I would not be surprised if we do get one of these years an all Big Ten, either a college football national championship or a March Madness championship.
I wouldn't be surprised about that either.
So, Josh, we had an incident in the women's Final Four between the head coaches of South Carolina and UConn.
Yeah. So you know about this, right?
Yes, I do. I don't know much about the history behind it, but I know about the incident.
So the South Carolina and UConn, they've played each other in the Final Four. They've played each other in regular season games. So it's not like this is an out of nowhere thing. But the whole thing was just odd. And Gino Auriemma issued an apology. I read the apology. I don't know if you had a chance to or not.
I did not read the apology. I saw he issued something, after the game. I didn't realize, because I know UConn has been one of the most dominant programs in women's college basketball. I know they have the 10 national championships. I didn't realize, though, that he's been there since 1985.
Oh, yeah. He's been at the center of UConn women's basketball for a while. He's had the likes of Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Brianna Stewart, Paige Beckers, Maya Moore, just to name a few.
I've always found it interesting how women react to men being their coaches, because we don't see it the other way around generally, unless it's like on an interim basis or someone's an assistant. But as the head coach,
and on the flip side, Dawn Staley has done a fantastic job as the head coach of South Carolina. I was at the national championship a couple of years ago when it was here in Cleveland, when South Carolina beat Iowa, which was a rematch of the Final Four the year before, where Iowa won that game to advance to the national championship, where they ended up losing to LSU. But, so Dawn Staley and Gino Auriemma have a lot of history. And I think this issue stemmed from something with the pregame and them not doing like the handshake correctly or something.
I mean, I just kind of thought it was UConn being sore losers because they're so used to winning.
Yeah, I've never seen UConn get handled like that. And I think part of the problem is UConn is in the Big East, and they don't really have a lot of strong competition in that conference. They just kind of steamroll their way through conference play constantly. So when you go up against a strong defensive team like South Carolina, it's going to take you out of your element.
It's not only that, I think they were embarrassed they got blown out. And that's what typically happens to Dynasty S teams. And we've seen it with the Chiefs 2 times in Super Bowls. It's like, you're not going to beat them usually in close games. If you're going to beat them, you're going to beat them down bad.
Yeah. As you said, we saw that with the Chiefs at the hands of your Philadelphia Eagles.
I mean, listen, this will get some buzz. Obviously, I think this is good for the sport. I actually watched more of the women's tournament this year than usual, mostly because I bet on some of these games. But I mean, I thought overall it was a good tournament. I was shocked with how the national championship ended, with UCLA putting a beatdown on South Carolina. I thought coming off that momentum of such a good win against UConn, South Carolina would at least hang in there with UCLA. I think one of the issues going on with women's college basketball is you have, your UCLAs, you have your UConns. My understanding is Michigan is pretty good, but it is mostly the same 3 or 4 teams every year. It's not like the men's where you have 8 or 9 teams who could theoretically win the championship. And the women's side, we all know it's majority. It's been what the people are complaining about the men's side, which is it's been mostly chalk.
Yeah, it's usually UConn, Texas, UCLA, Notre Dame, South Carolina. But this was, when I saw that, I'm like, that does not seem like a Gino Auriemma thing to do, to go at the opposing coach like that. And like I said, these are 2 of the most respected and historic coaches in not just women's college basketball, but I would say all of college basketball.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's the thing too. I think when you look around sports right now, I think the NFL as a collective has the best group of coaches of any sport. I think next you can make an argument, if you want to combine the two, would be men's and women's college basketball.
Yeah. Like, I know you're not a big women's college basketball person, but you know who Dawn Staley is.
Yep.
You know who Gino Auriemma is.
Yes.
Like, so they've come to these programs and turned them both into perennial powerhouses. Like we just said, South Carolina is usually one of the top teams in college basketball. They are constantly putting out top 5 picks in the WNBA draft. Same with UConn.
Yeah, that's why I think this situation, I think UConn was just shocked with how physical South Carolina was. And I don't think that they took it very well and received it very well. And it was like, oh, they didn't know how to counterpunch. I think the coach felt like the only way to defend my players is go after their coach.
Yeah, but it was a bad look for him. It really was.
Yeah, but you know what UConn's going to say? We can put this all to bed behind us. It's motivation for next year. If we win the championship again, really, no one will remember this incident, what they're thinking.
By the way, going back to the men's tournament for just a second, do you know that was UConn's first loss in the national championship?
Yeah, 6-0, and obviously some of that was before Dan Hurley. For the record, I love Dan Hurley. People that have a problem with Dan Hurley, I think have a problem with life. I love the way the guy coaches. He's very emotional. I think he's gonna break his glasses about 6 times a game when I watch him. Now, some of his facial reactions are over the top, but I will always defend coaches that clearly defend their players. And yeah, UConn had an out-of-body experience this March Madness. They didn't win one of the sides this year.
Yeah. And UConn was trying for the dynasty because they were in their 3rd national championship in the last 4 years, and they won pretty handily both in 2023 against San Diego State and in 2024 against Purdue.
Yeah, that 2024 UConn team, I think, is one of the best college basketball teams ever.
Yeah. And Alex Caravan, he could have gone out with a bang by winning his 3rd national championship as a senior, but
UConn they just couldn't get physical enough with Michigan. It was going to be a bad matchup for them. They had to make their shots and defend, and ultimately they couldn't do it.
No.
All right, well, I will say this is one thing that I believe you'll be upset about. I know I'm upset about, and that is the possibility of expansion.
Yeah, I sent this to you, and I'm like, why? Like, the tournament is great as it is.
This is obviously a money grab. And listen, I feel the same way about expansion in college basketball as I do about college football. I don't think it's necessary, especially in March Madness. I don't even think 68 teams is all that great. I know Texas was a play-in team this year, but generally the first 4 teams don't make it past. Maybe they'll get an upset in round 1. I prefer it to go from 64 to 16 in 4 days. There's nothing like it. Again, more teams are going to be more games for TV and more sites and more revenue. But you are just diluting then what it means to get into the tournament. And to me, if you're going to do this, you have to get rid of conference tournaments because they just wouldn't make any sense.
They would, if you do this, I agree with you. Conference tournaments would be absolutely meaningless because, like, Ohio State, for example, they didn't last very long in the conference tournament, and they still ended up as a number 8 seed.
I would argue the conference tournaments don't even mean much now, let alone if you expand it.
Yeah.
That was my whole argument with Michigan. I know everybody said that, oh, Michigan's getting exposed. They don't look that good because the way they played against Ohio State and Purdue. And my takeaway was they already knew they were going to be a number 1 seed. Their attitude was, if we win this thing, great. If not, fine. We're not going to go out of our way to kill ourselves to win this meaningless tournament. We're going to be a 1 seed in March Madness.
Yeah. Like a team like Wisconsin, they probably improved their seeding by doing well in the Big Ten tournament.
Now, obviously, there are cases, where some run like an Akron and they'll win the MAC and they'll get in the tournament. Like I get it for those lower conferences, the CCAA or the CUA or whatever conference you want to name.
By the way, I went to that MAC championship, but it was really annoying. One of the usual entrance I go in.
Yeah, you told me about this. I don't remember if it was on the air or off the air, but I know you missed the first part of the game.
Yeah, because the usual place I go to scan my tickets wasn't open, and I had to go outside, stand in a long line of people. I missed player introductions. I missed national anthem. I missed part of the game. Granted, I ended up being there for one of the greatest shots I've ever seen. And I genuinely thought Akron could pull off an upset against Texas Tech, but shows what I know.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not going to hold anything against you when it comes to March Madness because really nobody knows anything. It's what makes it March Madness. But here's the thing. I did not read the specific proposal, admittedly, of how they determine the other 8 teams, but are you aware of how they would go about doing it? Is it going to be more automatic bids or?
I'm not entirely sure, but
because there was a proposal thrown out there a few years ago that do you remember this one that was like, oh, let's put 90 teams or 100 teams?
Okay, if we go that far, what are we going to start March Madness in February?
Well,
then?
They pretty much said let's put all Division I teams in and just make it a tournament was a pitch I heard.
Oh, good God, no.
So they want to expand it because it's going to give them more TV rights because the media rights deal is coming up in 5 or 6 years. And they want to expand it because these programs like an Akron or Kent State or a Wright State, naming just some schools around our area, you're in the tournament, you get a big fat check. And you can use that big fat check now to go out and buy players. I mean, that is.
Yeah, but here's the problem.
Go ahead.
Here's the problem, though. If I'm at Akron, I'm going to use my NIL to go to a school like Michigan or a Duke, North Carolina, Houston, Florida, UConn.
If everybody does that, though, then you're not going to play because there's only so much playing time. And I find it really interesting. I know we don't have this in the rundown, but I texted you this yesterday. I love the fact that North Carolina hired Michael Malone. I think it's an A+ hire. I think it's going to work because he doesn't have to really recruit anymore. Him and his AD can say, hey, I'm an NBA champion. How much do you want? And here's your playing time. And, I think that the more blue bloods we get in the tournament, the better. I mean, if anything, and they would never do this, I could make an argument that, you could theoretically go down to 60 teams or even 56 more than 68. 76 it sounds overcomplicated. There's going to be teams in there that ultimately do not deserve to be in.
Yeah. I will say this. As much as I enjoy watching the national championship on TBS and TNT, I actually would love to see the game once be on ESPN with Jay Billis on the call just once with Dick Vitale. I know they have an alternate broadcast. Maybe it's for non-US where the game is on ESPN, but just once I'd like to see the national championship be on ESPN. They do that with the women's Final Four.
Well, that's because ESPN has the contract, though, with the woman. CBS has the exclusive rights to the men.
Right. Which, by the way, I have nothing against CBS or TNT or TBS broadcasting the national championship.
I think it's a mistake that they have it alternating every other year between TBS and CBS. It should be on CBS broadcast television every single year. I think it's I think it's a crime, to be honest with you, that the game last night was on TBS.
Yeah, and you could have also watched it on TNT, but it's not like that was an alternative broadcast or anything like that.
Yeah, they just simulcast it. All right. To the NBA we go because the season's winding down. It's the last week of the season, and the MVP race, seemingly because of injuries, and the NBA has this rule now where you have to play a certain amount of games to be
65
eligible,
games.
which is a whole nother issue that I may or may not get into here. But the MVP race is, I would say it's down to two people, but I'm going to be just completely transparent and say it's over. I love the fact that Victor Wembanyama is openly campaigning for MVP, as the question says on the screen, because he should. Because the story of this NBA season cannot be told without the San Antonio Spurs. Also, by the way, the story of the NBA season cannot be told without Kate Cunningham, but he's not eligible because he missed too many games. But John, and I'm going to call him your guy because out of the two of us on this show, he is your guy. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is going to win MVP. It's officially wrapped up. It was wrapped up when he broke Will Chamberlain's record for most 20-point games because the NBA media loves media stories like this. And the Thunder are the number one
That's
seed.
why Russell Westbrook won MVP the year he did, because he kept averaging triple doubles.
Every time you break a record of a legend, you're going to win MVP. And Shea's doing it, and he's going to have a chance, in my mind, to win back-to-back regular season MVPs and back-to-back finals MVPs, something few people have done in the history of the NBA. Again, I'm not taking anything away from SGA. He's had a great year, but he's basically had the same year as last year. And I'm sorry, nobody expected the Spurs and the Pistons to be as good as they were. And the word is valuable to me. So
go ahead.
I would give it, my order personally would go Wemby, Cade, and then I think you could have an argument between Cade Cunningham and Nikola Jokic for third, if it's me. But I think that this thing is already wrapped up. But I love the fact that Wemby is openly campaigning for it.
Yeah, I love that Wemby is campaigning. And he's like, where would the Spurs be if I wasn't here? You know.
By the way, my favorite part, it's not even about that. This is what he said, which caught my attention, which was basically MVP is just not about offense. MVP is about defense too. And, I think he became the third fastest player in the history of the NBA to get a double-double in one of these games while you were in Germany. He had 10 and 10 within 8 minutes. I know in back-to-back games, he had like 40 points and 19 rebounds. I mean, the dude is a unicorn. At his age, he's doing something that nobody, not Michael Jordan, not LeBron, not Will Chamberlain, not anybody that's the ghost of NBA's past have done. He is a one-of-one player.
He really is. I think in terms of who you put in your lineup, I agree with, but you have to include Jaylen Brown in there also. We'll get to the Celtics here shortly.
I agree. I think the issue with Jaylen Brown is he's an NBA champion already. He's not very marketable to the media because he doesn't have the game like that translates the personality wise. He's having an MVP season. There's no doubt about it.
Think about it. Again, we'll get to the Celtics shortly. But when Jason Tatum went down and we went into this regular season, you and I, neither one of us had the Celtics as a top 3 seed. I think we both had them in like that
around the 6-7 somewhere. I think we flirted with them maybe being a play-in, but I think we both said 6 seed.
Yes, and yet here they are firmly
as the 2 seed. Well,
exactly.
It's my argument for Wemby and Cade. Like you and I both thought the Pistons and Spurs were going to be good teams. We both thought maybe 4 or 5 seed. I don't care what the odds say. I will stamp my finger on this right now. The San Antonio Spurs should be the favorite. I'm not going to say they're going to win it. They should be the favorite to win the NBA title this year.
I'm hoping we get a Spurs Thunder Western Conference Finals, and then my ideal finals would be either the Spurs or the Thunder going against the Boston Celtics.
That's interesting. See, my dream is just a second round matchup. I want to see what we got on Saturday night, which was Wemby and Jokic go for 7 games.
Yes.
That's my finals. I'll be honest with you.
No, but like, if you remember, we talked about the Celtics in that 2-game stretch where they played at San Antonio and at OKC.
The game where Jaylen Brown got kicked out of the game. And
you have no idea how furious I was when that referee ejected Jaylen Brown from that game in San Antonio.
Oh, by the way, so while we're talking about the NBA and the load management and the games played, you might have been back from vacation. I'm not sure yet. I don't know if you saw the stat that was floating around Twitter last week, but in national television games this year, in total, out of every national TV game, only 32% of the national TV games that the NBA has produced this year has had every single team's star, which is defined as a player within the last 2 or 3 seasons being an all NBA player or an all-star, be healthy and playing in the game.
It's ridiculous.
So, again, and we've been saying this for weeks, Josh. We're going to talk more NBA, but I'll say it right here, right now. We like the NBA. We're beating up on the NBA. The NBA needs a good playoff, and I think we're going to get one, but we're beating up on it because it's got issues, and the sport is more becoming, I would argue, narrative-driven than it is about watching. I mean, I was talking about this today. I grew up with, and so did you, LeBron, Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, Steve Nash, Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, you name them.
Dwight Howard.
Yes, and now we've got SGA, we've got Jokic, we've got Wemby, we've got Tatum, we got Jaylen Brown, we got Brunson, we've got Giannis, we got Anthony Edwards, we've got Cooper Flag, we've got most of these stars, young and old, but it's like there's a disconnect between the NBA and how to market these guys, and the majority of them are in the West, which is hurting viewership, I would argue.
Yeah. By the way, going back to what you said earlier, like Wemby's comments, he's 100% right, because there's 2 sides of the floor, and Wemby has got Defensive Player of the Year on lockdown.
I would say he's got Defensive Player of the Year on lockdown until he retires, as long as he's healthy.
If he had been healthy last year, he would have won it. No disrespect to
Evan Mobley at all. I completely agree with you. But that's the other thing. This, I think, also should go in Wemby's favor. This time last year, we were legitimately concerned about the guy's long-term health as a human being.
Yeah, and you watch what he can do. He could, take off from the free throw line and make it and dunk the ball and make it look like it's nothing for him.
He makes Jokic look like a small forward.
And that game the other night in Denver was so good. I told you, if the Nuggets can get Jamal Murray going, they can beat anybody. You can't just dismiss the Denver Nuggets.
I'm not dismissing that. The problem is with them, they're going to have to go up against San Antonio. I don't know if they can beat San Antonio. I think they're the one team that could. Because I really think, no disrespect to OKC. I think if Aaron Gordon doesn't get hurt before Game 7, they could have beat OKC last year.
It'll be interesting once Seattle and Vegas. Oh, Brandon just left. So I don't know what happened there, but moving on. We're going to
Sorry about that.
There you are.
We had a technical glitch. Sorry about that.
But the Boston Celtics, they are not going to be the number 1 seed. Detroit cinched that up, but everybody is penciling in the Celtics as the favorites in the East. Should they be?
I've been saying this since Jason Tatum came back, that in my opinion, while he's back and it's great, and the Celtics look really good and they're playing really good brand of basketball, I just think the physicality of a team like the Knicks, and I know that people are saying the Knicks are not playing that well right now, and I get it, but I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think the Knicks are built for the postseason. And I think, and I know, it was last year, and I know Tatum got hurt, but I think the Knicks were going to win that series anyway, the way that they were playing. And no, I don't think the Celtics should be the clear-cut favorites. I get why everybody fell in love with them, but I think Boston is going to revert back to what they are, which is ultimately a jump shooting team. And they're going to get by whoever the hell they play in the first round, because nobody knows what the seeding's going to look like 5 through 10 right now in the Eastern Conference. But they'll get by whoever is the 7th seed, and then they will match up, I'm assuming, with the Knicks, who I think will be the 3, because I think the Cavs will stay at the 4. And I think they will lose to the Knicks in round 2 as of right now. And if I had to take a guess right now, I would argue, and I've been saying this since the James Harden trade, the Knicks and the Cavs should be the 2 co-favorites to win in the East. And I think the Knicks, with Mike Brown, Jalen Brunson back, I think they're on a mission to at least get to the finals. And I think Karl Anthony Towns will have the postseason of his life, because if he doesn't, the Knicks will be not only going home early, but Cat will be gone come this offseason. And I think that
I think Cat is the most important player for the Knicks, honestly.
Absolutely. And I think he wants to prove that they don't need to go out and get Giannis or another star. And so for me, I guess on paper, should the Celtics be favorites? Sure. But I like the Knicks more than Boston.
So, by the way, the Celtics have a very interesting game against a resurgent Charlotte Hornets team tonight in Boston. I don't think anybody in the top of the East wants to see Charlotte in the first round. Charlotte has been playing
Charlotte
much
and
better.
Atlanta are the 2 teams that you do not want to see in the first round. And unfortunately for us, I think we're going to see Atlanta.
Right. The Cavs play the Hawks twice.
Yeah, they do.
Over the course of the next 3 days. Tomorrow night.
I would sit our guys. I think I would. At least one of the games.
Yeah, tomorrow night is here in Cleveland on ESPN. And then I think the other game is Friday in Atlanta on Prime.
I mean, here's the thing about Charlotte. They're only 21-19 at home. They're actually been a road team. They're 22-17 on the road, which is unusual.
And if I'm not mistaken, Charlotte is right on the doorstep of breaking into the top 6.
So they are a half a game back of your Raptors, and I'm going to call them your Raptors because you were on the Raptors this season. I wasn't, and I'll give you that. But
yeah, you were on the Chicago Bulls.
I was, and they fired everybody. Maybe the owner finally realized we can't have 9 point guards on our roster at the trade deadline. But no, the Hornets are a half a game back. Everybody from the number 5 seed in the East, which is the Hawks, to the 10 seed in the East is 3.5 games within each other, with depending on how many games you play, 3 to 4 games left.
Yeah. But with the Celtics, I think they are the clear-cut favorite. Because, yes, Detroit is the number 1 seed, but I don't trust them. I think the Pistons are a bad matchup for the Knicks, but I think the Celtics could take them. I think the Cavs could take them.
I think the Pistons are going to get beat in the second round, whoever they play, whether it's the Knicks or the Cavs, because I think they'll get by the first round. I'm assuming Cade Cunningham, they're going to rush him back. Like I assume the Lakers are going to try to rush Luka Doncic back. So I think the Pistons will get by their first round matchup, but whoever they play in that second round, I think they're going to lose. And I think that regardless if Cade was healthy or not.
Yeah. Which, although I don't want to necessarily say we're going to win our first round series if our opponent is the Atlanta Hawks.
We should beat Atlanta, though. I mean, they don't have a lot of playoff experience. We have the two best players, maybe even the three best players in the series. I think the only way the Cavs were to lose a first round matchup to Atlanta is if Atlanta shoots crazy from three, which could happen. But I don't think it's likely over a 7-game series. That's the difference.
That was a great game between the Hawks and Knicks last night. It
Well,
came down.
that's kind of how I feel about like Charlotte and Boston if they were to match up. Like I think Charlotte could give Boston a scare, maybe a game or two. Maybe they push it further than you would like, but ultimately Boston should win the series.
I could see Charlotte pushing Boston to a game 7.
I don't see that. If they do, I think they would get clapped in a game 7 personally because of the experience. But like I think Boston's not going to mess around. I think the Cavs know they can't mess around because when you look at Detroit, they are as vulnerable as a 1 seed, I would argue, as the 2018 Raptors and the 2015 Hawks and the Bulls seed that was the number 1 seed with Derrick Rose.
Oh, from 2011.
Yes.
But yeah, Detroit's the number 1 seed. First time since like 2007 or something. I think.
First time since I believe we beat them in the 07 ECF.
Yes. And Detroit's like the 5th or 6th different number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, going back to like 2020 at least.
Well, that's because every year in the East, somebody emerges. And usually, if you look at history, that number 1 seed outside of Giannis and that Bucks team that won the championship has not fared well in the postseason.
No, you're 100% right. So I don't know. I thought Philadelphia was the 1 seed the year the Bucks won it.
Were they? You could be right.
Because the Bucks had to go on the road for game 7 against Brooklyn.
That was the 2020-2021. Yeah, you were right. The Bucks were the 3 seed that year. So in the 2018-2019, that was the year the Raptors won it. They were the 2 seed. In 1920, that was the year that Miami got to the finals. That was the COVID year. They were a 5 seed.
Okay.
2021-2022, that was the year the Celtics got it. They were a 2 seed. And then we know about the Heat being the 8th seed in the 2023 season.
Right.
23-24, that was the year that Boston was the 1 seed and they won it. So Boston was the 1 seed that got there and won it. The last team to do that to get to the finals from the 1 was our Cavs in 15-16.
Okay. Because we were the number 1 seed last year, but it was Indiana that got to the NBA Finals.
Correct. Speaking of LeBron, he said something about the Grizzlies. And basically, he called Memphis trash and said they should move to Nashville. And I can a little bit vouch for this because my brother's girlfriend grew up in Memphis, and he's been to Memphis. And I can verify that Memphis is not a very nice place for everything he's told me. And even though they love and support their Grizzlies, the arena's a dump, and not that many fans show up. And I don't think many fans would care if they moved to Nashville anyway.
And part of LeBron's reasoning was because of the hotels the players stay at when they go to play the Grizzlies, which the Cavs ironically just played the Grizzlies in Memphis last night. That was their final game against a Western Conference team, interestingly enough. Didn't love that it was on the second night of a back-to-back, but whatever. But honestly, I'm surprised that Nashville doesn't have an NBA team because it's, like they've got the Predators. They're building a new stadium for the Titans. They put on a great NFL draft when they hosted it. Yep. It seems like an awesome city. I get it. Memphis has a lot of history, especially for the African American community. I understand that. But yeah, if the Grizzlies were to move to Nashville, I wouldn't be too upset about it. I don't think Nashville could get an expansion team theoretically because the Grizzlies would say no. But I'm honestly surprised at how much attention this whole story has gotten.
Well, I think it's because people would rather see the Grizzlies move to Nashville or have Nashville get an expansion team as opposed to Las Vegas.
Yeah, I don't love that Las Vegas is getting an NBA team, but, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, obviously there's been a lot of talk about is expansion needed. I mean, the NBA is kind of going through. I know this has been making the rounds around the internet. There has been like every game this month has been like decided by 20 plus points or so, it feels like.
Yeah. And the NBA's trying to solve their tanking issue, but they've been really unsuccessful at doing so.
But to me, this is the argument, and me and Fitz and Jalen, we sort of touched on this, Josh, when you were on vacation. I don't think the NBA has a tanking issue. I think the NBA has an issue of, one, it's two things. Number one, this year is a very good draft, and teams are going to want to tank to get a good player because they want to be good. They want to get asses in seats. But when you have no avenues to get better now because of the second apron and the restrictions on trades and the other things the NBA has done to make it really hard to build a competitive team long term, what do you have to do to get good players if you're a Utah or Washington or Brooklyn? That's not a hot free agency destination. You tank. And I don't think that it is the NBA's fault that the Wizards and the Kings and these other teams have been bad for so many years. I think it is the general manager's fault. I'm not blaming Adam Silver for why the Wizards are bad, where I think Adam Silver is blaming it on these tanking restrictions and the lottery, and this is how we're going to fix it. The tanking issue is only going to make the bad teams get worse because there's not going to be a way for them to get better.
Yeah, you were on the Chicago Bulls train. I was the one who predicted the Utah Jazz would get into the playoffs.
Like, I think the Bulls are going to smartly try to tear it down, and they're going to be bad for 2-3 years, and they're going to be like, okay, we're going to be bad. Like, if I'm the NBA, I get rid of the lottery completely. I do it the NFL style. You're the worst team, you get the number one pick. Oh, and by the way, because of NIL, and we're finally embracing college basketball and not trying out the dumb G League Ignite that never worked, there's going to be better players now in college basketball, which will allow teams to get better quickly, which is what you want. It's not the tanking ideas that they have is not the issue. The issue was the quality of players coming into the NBA were not very good. Now they are because they're getting properly coached in college.
And you're going to continue to have all the international players coming over as well.
Yes, but the problem is the international players, some of them were not ready to play. Obviously, Luka and some of these guys were, but guys like Alex Sarr were not. And so if you can supplement that, I mean, a few years ago, we had an NBA draft where the biggest story coming out of it was which pick is Bronny going to be drafted in. We've gone from that to now there's going to be 15 American players drafted in the top 15.
Yeah. I think it was the year after San Antonio selected Wemby number 1 overall. That's when Atlanta got the number 1 pick, and they selected, I think, Zachary Ricochet.
By the way, how did the Spurs get so good? They tanked for 2-3 years, and they got the best player available.
Yeah.
And they got the number 2 pick, and Dylan Harper's going to be really good, and Stephon Castle is going to be really good.
Yeah. And they used some of their assets and got De'Aaron Fox.
Yes. So there you go. There's my TED Talk on that. Well, speaking of TED Talks, oh boy. This story makes me sick. it makes me sick for multiple reasons. But I'm just going to talk about the on the field issue first. The Browns, in my opinion, and I've said this, and this may be disrespectful to Todd Monken, and Josh, I know you hope I'm wrong, and please tell me I'm wrong. I think Todd Monken is going to become the Browns version of what David Culley was for the Houston Texans. He is a figurehead. He is there for 1 year. The Browns are going to tank. They clearly do not have any belief in Deshaun Watson or Shedeur Sanders, in my opinion, because this is all rhetoric, because the Browns want to lose every game they possibly can, because Jimmy Haslam wants to select Arch Manning with the number 1 pick in the 2027 NFL Draft. And that's fully what I believe.
The fact that Haslam is even saying this is utterly ridiculous. You know, he hasn't played well since we basically gave the Houston Texans their current team with that trade. Houston has won that trade with us hand over fist. It's not even close. The Texans absolutely fleeced us.
Josh, I think your microphone cut off. I can't hear you anymore. I just hear a ringing sound. Yeah, no, I can't hear you. A little bit. I can hear your mic starting to come through.
Is that better now?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So respectfully, I'm not going to call him by his actual name. I'm just going to call him number 4. Because of all his off the field issues, I will not call him by his actual name. He is number 4 to me. When he was in Houston, we thought, oh, it's going to be him and Patrick Mahomes. We thought it's going to be the two of them battling for AFC supremacy. And since he's come to Cleveland, that hasn't been the case. He hasn't been able to stay on the field. And when he's been on the field, he hasn't looked good. He's had 2 major injuries. And I don't know how he's supposed to come back and look like a good quarterback. I don't.
I don't know how you're supposed to evaluate, because if this is truly an evaluation of Shedeur Sanders, how are you going to evaluate him with a new coach if he's the backup quarterback taking backup reps?
I don't know.
That's my argument. If the Browns want to be bad, like you know how I felt. I would have traded Myles Garrett a couple off seasons ago. I would have ate the dead cap hit with Deshaun Watson, as you call him, number 4. I don't care what the money was. I want to tank. I want to be bad. I'll figure it out later. Clearly, the Browns have said, we made our investment in this. We're gonna lie in our bed. And I do think, to defend the former head coach of the Browns, Kevin Stefanski, a little bit, if Deshaun Watson was really Stefanski's choice at quarterback and Stefanski was the one driving the bus, Deshaun would have been out of here once they fired Stefanski. So I do think on that front, it confirms that I believe Andrew Berry is the one that did go after Deshaun Watson. And the interesting part is, I know you and I both believe Jimmy Haslam is the one that went after Shedeur Sanders. And I do believe that Jimmy only made the call on Todd Monken. So who's going to win out here?
Yeah, the Browns are a pathetic franchise. They are. I'm not expecting them to do well this season. You know, we play the AFC South. We play the NFC South. At best, and maybe I'm being generous, at best, I'm expecting them to go 5-12.
See, I actually think that this is my take. I think they're probably going to go 1-16. But the schedule says that they could win 6 or 7 games. The problem is, I don't think they want to.
The Browns are an absolute dumpster fire.
All right, well, speaking of what is always seemingly a dumpster fire in the media, last year we saw Micah Parsons and a contract dispute with Jerry Jones, and he ended up getting traded to the Green Bay Packers for 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark. George Pickens this offseason has gotten franchise tagged. Jerry Jones has repeatedly said he wants George Pickens to be a Cowboy, but that they can't pay Dak and CD and Pickens and some of the other guys they did want to pay. So is the George Pickens drama going to play out, Josh, the same way it did with Micah Parsons?
And to add more fuel to the fire, I'm pretty sure George Pickens' agent is the same agent Micah Parsons has, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, you are
David
correct.
Malagueta, I believe is his name. So you have to negotiate with him again, Jerry. No, but it's ironic we're doing these 2 stories back to back because, as I have said, Jimmy Haslam is our version of Jerry Jones. The only difference is Jimmy doesn't get in front of the camera and get on the microphone the same way Jerry does. That is literally the only difference between the 2 of them. But
so, I think you look at the NFL nowadays, and most of the good teams, not Buffalo is a good example of not having one, but most of the good teams have not 1 receiver, but 2 receivers. And guess what? They draft their defense, they keep them young, and then they either trade some defensive pieces like the Chiefs have, or they pay some of their defensive players and they maybe move on and draft other positions. It is feasible to keep Dak, George Pickens, and CD Lamb all happy in the roster. It's if you hit on your other draft picks, which is what the Cowboys have not done, which is what the Eagles have done, which is why my team has a Super Bowl in this time period and the Cowboys do not. And it's as simple as that.
Well, here's something else. Because you're talking about paying the quarterback and paying the 2 receivers. Well, the Cincinnati Bengals have done that, and it hasn't exactly worked out well for them. Now has
because they haven't hit their defensive draft picks. And I mean, they're paying Burrow, they're paying Chase, they're paying Higgins. But again, why do the Eagles pay Jalen Hurts? They pay A.J. Brown for right now. They pay Devontae Smith. They pay Saquon Barkley. They pay Wayne Johnson. Well, guess what? They just paid Jordan Davis. They still got Jalen Carter, Cooper DeJean, and Quinyon Mitchell. I know they're all rookies, and they're on rookie contracts, but that's the point. They hit on all those picks. And by the way, Cooper DeJean was a 2nd-round pick, and Quinyon Mitchell was a late 1st-round pick, and Jalen Carter was a top 10 pick, but he wasn't, and Jordan Davis was a top 13-ish pick. So it wasn't like these guys were top 5 draft picks. It's right where the Cowboys are picking every year, 12 or 13.
And think about like the 2013 Seattle Seahawks. You know, Russell Wilson, I think, was a 2nd-round pick.
Yep, he was. But the difference with that is, so they didn't have to pay Russ, but Richard Sherman was a 5th-round pick. You know,
exactly.
A lot of those secondary guys, peak arrow developed and drafted, come from USC because he knew college football. He knew back then, I think it was still the Pac-12. It might have been the Pac-10. But he knew a lot of that because he coached in it.
Exactly. So, like,
I mean, look at the Chargers, right? They've been in on draft picks because Jim Harbaugh's been in the Big Ten. He knows college football. Now, that hasn't won any playoff success, but every year, you know what everybody says? You know, it's a top 5 roster in the NFL, and they're paying Justin Herbert, the Chargers.
Yeah, and you talked about your Eagles. Why are they so successful on defense? It's because they get guys from the SEC, primarily Georgia.
Yeah. Georgia and Alabama, baby. That's why I watch SEC football, because I want to see what future bird we're going to draft.
It's why Baltimore is usually a perennial power, because they go and get like a Marlon Humphrey. They go and get Kyle Hamilton.
How many defensive guys in the Steelers draft? They're just Pro Bowler, Pro Bowler, Pro Bowler.
Exactly.
The Rams. Why have the Rams been so successful? Because they've hit on late. The Rams have made 1 first-round pick in like the last 10 years. They've been to multiple NFC championship games and they won a Super Bowl because they draft guys late. Puka Nacua was a 5th-round pick.
I will say this. Their 1 first-round pick looks like a definitive hit. Jared Verse has just exploded onto the scene.
So, Jerry, make your draft picks. Draft guys on defense. If I'm Dallas, I take both of my first round picks this year and I go defense, whether it's secondary or defensive line. Pay George Pickens. You can't afford George Pickens. Now, I would argue you couldn't afford Dak, Micah, CD, and George Pickens. So they made the decision to move Micah. But now that you have George Pickens, you can't move up both Micah and George Pickens. I know you only gave up a third-round pick for George Pickens, but if you give up that capital for 1 year of him, it does feel like a waste.
It really does, because when CD went down, Dallas was still effective on offense.
Oh, George Pickens was incredible. He went back to his old steel. Remember the couple games he had like 10 catches?
That's exactly you're making my point there, because when CD went down, we didn't say the Cowboys were irrelevant. We said, okay, they can still hang around, and a big part of that was because what we saw from Dak and George Pickens.
I kind of feel this way for the Cowboys, but it's like this year they're either going to win 9 or 10 games or the dam's going to break and they're going to win 4 or 5. Kind of what we thought last year. I am leaning more towards the latter because all of a sudden the NFC East is not no cakewalk anymore, especially if Jaden Daniels is healthy and what we think of John Harbaugh and Jackson Dart. The Giants are no bottom dwellers either, and of course my Eagles are going to be right there in contention again.
Yeah. I don't fully trust Washington, though.
That's interesting because I think they could be right. I'm scared of Washington. If they have a good draft and it's all about Jane Daniels' health, though. I will say that.
Haven't we seen Washington with a second-round pick and him unable to stay healthy, though?
Yeah, but that was under old ownership.
Yeah, but we saw what happened with Jaden last year.
Fair enough. Speaking of quarterbacks, you mentioned this right before we got on the show because this was interesting today. Former Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia, very popular left-handed quarterback, is being
Heisman Trophy runner-up.
Is being worked out by the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, I think this is fascinating because they just selected Bryce Young with the number 1 overall pick a few years ago. They won the division, took the Rams right down to the wire in the wild card round, and now you're bringing in Diego Pavia, who was a key part of Vanderbilt's turnaround last year, or really the last 2 years. To me, that raises an eyebrow about Bryce Young. How confident are they in Bryce?
See, I'll answer it both ways because I think both things are true. First of all, I don't think Diego Pavia is going to be drafted until day 3. And I think that if you take a quarterback on day 3, you're taking him for development anyway. So I don't think this would hurt. I mean, how many times did my Eagles do that with a quarterback? How many times has New England did it when they had Brady? They take a developmental guy in the 4th or 5th round. I don't really care what the name says in the back of the jersey. We've seen so many great guys in college, Heisman Trophy winners, go to the NFL and fail massively. But I also think the issue is for Carolina. And listen, I agree with you. I tried to defend Bryce Young when Dave Canales got there. Remember the first year Dave Canales was there and Bryce Young got benched for Andy Dalton, and it was like, he's so bad, he can't even see over his offensive line. He can't complete any passes. He's gone a long way, but I do think Carolina is looking at it like, if I have to commit $50 million to Bryce Young, I don't feel comfortable doing that. And that's what the market's going to say to do at the end of this season.
It depends on how he plays and what the Panthers do. I'm curious to see if at some point in the draft, probably not in the first round, but if in round 2 or round 3, if Carolina goes with a running back, since they just lost Rico Dowdle.
Yeah, no, I think you can make a case for that. Obviously, they have the receivers. They have their defensive line now with Jalen Phillips and Derek Brown. They need secondary help. But I think the biggest weakness on their roster right now outside of Chuba Hubbard is running back.
So I think the Panthers are going to be a team to watch in the draft for sure. But no, I think this story is fascinating, and I'm surprised it's not being talked about more. The fact that Carolina is looking at a potential or a Heisman Trophy finalist at quarterback. Like I said, he was one of the key pieces in Vanderbilt's turnaround.
Well, many people don't think he's going to be a great NFL quarterback.
Whether that turns out to be true or not remains to be seen, obviously. But nonetheless, I think this is a major story for the draft. I really do.
Yeah, of course, the draft's going to be in 2 weeks. We're going to break it all down here in a couple weeks on Championship Rings. Me, Josh, and our other two Voted colleagues, Christian and Sean Fitzgerald, are working on an NFL mock draft right now. We all got 8 picks apiece. That will be up to Tuesday before draft day. And I've said before, speaking of the draft, just real quickly, I don't think you're going to see a lot of movement in this draft. I think it's going to be a lot of maybe second guessing on sort of who picks who, right? Like I think there's going to be a lot of discussion on this guy was supposed to go higher, maybe he drops, or this guy was supposed to go lower, and this team had him graded higher. Because there's a lot of very similar, interesting players, especially at the top. The edge rushers out of Miami, and then you got the 3 defensive guys out of Ohio State. But I don't think there's going to be a very fanatic trade up, trade down draft.
We'll see. I don't think anybody's going to trade up for Ty Simpson, the quarterback out of Alabama.
I mean, here's the one thing. I don't buy this report that the Jets are going to take him at 16. I don't see it. I don't think the Jets are going to take a quarterback this draft. I think they're going to roll with, as Aaron Glenn calls him, our savior, Geno Smith, and win about 2 games and try to get Arch Manning.
Yeah. But I do, like I said, I think the Panthers are one of the teams to watch in this draft. I think the Titans are another team to watch in the NFL draft. A lot of the mock drafts I've seen have them taking Jeremiah Love at number 4 overall, the running back out of Notre Dame. In our mock draft, I do not have them selecting Jeremiah Love. I have them selecting David Bailey out of Texas Tech because Robert Saleh is a defensive coach. He was the defensive coordinator in San Francisco. And who did he have at linebacker? Fred Warner. And with the high power caliber offenses you're going to face in the AFC, you need a strong defense. And I think linebacker is one of the key positions on defense. So if you can go get somebody like David Bailey, I'm not saying he's going to turn into Fred Warner necessarily, but if you can get somebody of his caliber to play in that linebacker position, I think that would help the Titans massively.
See, Josh, I actually think the most interesting team in this round, I'm not just saying it because I'm a fan, but I think it's the Eagles for 2 reasons. One is, if they take a wide receiver in the first round, what does that signal? We all know the answer to that. So it's very interesting from my perspective what they do in the first round of the draft. And the other thing is, in the second or third round, like if Ty Simpson is still there, we know there's reports right now out about Jalen Hurts and how the organization feels about him. I expressed my admiration for that to be BS report on Championship Rings last week with Sean Fitzgerald. But they could theoretically pull another Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts if they take another quarterback in the second or third round. So I think my team is fascinating to see what we're going to do in the draft.
I think the Saints could be another interesting team. I do think they will go defense with the 9th pick. I think they it wouldn't surprise me if they go Ruben Bain out of Miami. What, am I putting you to sleep over there?
No, I've had a long day.
Okay. But I also think they need running back help, and I think they need some wide receiver depth.
Wait, are we sure they need running back help? They have Kamara and ETN now.
Well, like Kamara's getting up there.
Well, he could be used as trade bait, but we don't know that yet.
Yeah, but we've seen it's good to have two running backs.
They have two right now. That's my point. So once they trade Kamara, I don't think they're taking a running back.
You never know. But I also, because Olave is good, but I don't think he's enough on the wide receiver side.
I agree with that. They definitely need to take a receiver.
Especially because they traded Rashid Shaheed.
So another interesting story, real quick. We won't spend a lot of time on this one, but in 2027, the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be playing their home games in Orlando, Florida, the home of the Camping World Stadium, which has hosted 2 WrestleManias in the past, and one of the homes, I believe, potentially of the UFL team right now.
I believe you're right. So they will be playing in their regular stadium in this season, but with a reduced capacity. And that is because the Jaguars are doing a massive construction project to their current stadium. It's going to be called like the Stadium of the Future. They're putting a like futuristic dome on their stadium. So the Florida-Georgia game is not going to be played there in 2026 or 2027. But, you know, it's interesting. Like, the A's are kind of in the same situation where they're playing in a temporary home. Granted, the A's are in the process of relocating. I don't think the Jaguars are going to relocate. But, you know, I just think it's interesting that they're going to be moving up to Orlando. Like, what if Orlando shows they are a strong NFL city? Could they possibly get an expansion team in the future?
I don't think the NFL should expand anymore. I think 32 teams is enough. I think we go any more, you're opening up a can of worms. I think all sports leagues should have 32 teams, and that should be capped. Like, if we want to move a team to Orlando, we can have that discussion, but that's a lot of teams. And there's some good players in the UFL that should be on NFL rosters. Don't get me wrong, the UFL has been entertaining to watch, but there's not enough to fill another 2 full rosters of NFL guys.
But what are your thoughts on the Jaguars playing their home games in Orlando?
I mean, I think Orlando's a better football market than Jacksonville.
Okay.
I will say that. I don't know how many Jaguars fans are going to want to travel up to Orlando. I don't know how far away Orlando is from Jacksonville. I think it's a couple hours. So I actually think the Jaguars make it a good crowd, but I don't think it's a massive story because I think Jacksonville is going to be staying there, and I don't think Orlando's going to be getting a football team.
And we know Jacksonville's going to be playing 2 games over in London anyway.
Yeah.
By the way, I've started putting out my schedule predictions for the Browns. We play the Jaguars this season. I haven't revealed when I have the Browns playing them because I only did weeks 1 to 4 so far. But I will say this. Since the Browns play the Jaguars and the Buccaneers both on the road, I have that being a back-to-back. So, like, I have them starting at Jacksonville and then the following week playing at Tampa Bay. I have them doing the same.
There's a lot of rumors that the Jaguars game could be a London game.
I hope not. The Browns just played in London last year.
Well, we know the NFL is expanding. They have 9 international games, and eventually they're going to want all 16 teams to win an international game every year.
Yep. They are going – it's inevitable. We're going to go to 18 games.
Yep. Now, the interesting thing is we actually talked about this a little bit when you were on vacation with Jalen. I'll ask you this real quick. Did you see the proposal that I think it was Mike Florio who said it, that said they should go to 18 games, but you should only have the players play 17
So who would play the 18th game?
backups.
Oh,
Meaning, like, if you're the Rams and you have the Jets on your schedule, is that the week you rest Matthew Stafford? Because you think you can beat the Jets without him?
yeah.
No,
I guess.
the fantasy implications of that would be wild, and I don't think they should do it. But they said it's a workaround, a way for the union to get to 18 games without them playing 18 games, because the concern is safety for 18 games, which I think is BS, to be honest with you, because I think preseason games are more hurtful than regular season games. I don't think we'd get way more injuries if we increased it by one game, but I'm not a medical scientist. But I do think if you reduce the season from 17-3 to 18-2, I'm just not a fan of I'm not a fan of 17 games. I thought they should have went to 18 when they expanded from 16. I love the 16 game schedule. I didn't think they needed 18, but since you went to 17, I thought you might as well go to 18.
I mean, for God's sakes, they might go to 20 games eventually.
No, I mean, way too much. Way too much on the body. You got to have some sort of body recovery time. You can't play football for 7 months straight.
With the way the NFL is, I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me.
Fair enough. Well, speaking of champions, the Dodgers and Blue Jays are having a World Series rematch, and the Blue Jays got their ass kicked last night by the Dodgers. And fun fact, their only 2 losses of the season came from the Cleveland Guardians. But this early in the season, and for it to be during the middle of the week, shows that baseball still has a massive issue when it comes to their schedule.
I know. They released their schedule before the current season is over.
They release it before the playoffs start.
Yeah. So, like, whoever wins the World Series might not start the season at home.
I didn't even think about that, but you're right.
Yeah. Like Oklahoma City. They won the finals last year. They got to open the season at home and raise their championship banner in front of their home crowd. The Seattle Seahawks, they won the Super Bowl. Guess what? They get to open the season at Lumen Field in front of their home crowd, But the Dodgers, in this case, they did get to do that, but there's no guarantee. But that, it was an epic World Series, and you're gonna do it mid-April?
The second week of the season, where it's games 9, 10, and 11 of the season. Oh, and by the way, it's going to be on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Oh, and by the way, the only time they play the whole season.
Yeah.
And by the way they do it in baseball is, if you play one series a year now, so that everybody plays every team, but they'll flip up every other year. So this year it takes place in Toronto. So they will not even go back to Los Angeles till next year.
Yes. So the Cubs made their only trip to Cleveland. The Guardians don't get to go to Chicago until next year.
By the way, for the record, because I know you were supposed to go, did you end up going to both games on Sunday?
No, I only went to game 1.
Oh my God. I got to tell you, the thing that looks most fun in baseball, folks, when you're at the second game of a doubleheader, there's only 10 people there.
It was bitterly cold, so we were only able to stay for game 1, which the Cubs won. I was decked out in my Cubs gear, so I was
gonna say you were delighted to see 3 total hits and a complete pitcher's duel.
Yeah. I was playing Go Cubs Go, walking up the stairs and out on the concourse. But no, I hate that they did this. Because last night's game was on FS1, and I'm like, you're putting a World Series rematch against the national championship? What are we doing?
Well, in fairness to that, they didn't know it was going to be a World Series rematch, but that's the problem, is they didn't know. Even the NBA reveals their schedule in August, and they try to marquee out, the top games, finals, rematch, etc. Though they did do it weird this year, and I think they did it because of the Tyrese Halliburton injury. You remember Thunder Pacers was like the second game of the year.
In Indiana, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, the NFL is obviously the schedule king. Everybody should copy what the NFL does. The NFL's turned schedule always day into schedule always week with all their weeks. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Since I was talking about it earlier, I'll just say it here. The first 4 weeks, I have the Browns schedule as listed like this. Week 1, I have them hosting the Indianapolis Colts. Week 2, I have them hosting the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday Night Football. Week 3, I have them playing at the Baltimore Ravens. Although, given some of the recent reports, that's might not happen because I've heard the Ravens are going to play the Cowboys in Brazil in week 3. And then
that as well.
And then in week 4, I have the Browns hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. So those are my first 4 games. I'm going to make another video where I do weeks 5 through 8 and then so on and so forth.
Well, Josh, before you went on vacation, you said the number 1 match you were looking forward to at WrestleMania 42 was Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton. And then this past Friday on SmackDown, after it was speculated for weeks, could it be Cowboy Bob Orton? Could it be Arn Anderson? Could it be Vince McMahon on the other side of the phone?
Could it be Kevin Owens?
Wait, it's Pat McAfee?
Yeah, you have no idea. I was so excited for this feud, especially after Randy's heel turn. I'm like, great, they're going to have a blood feud. They're going to talk about their 20 years of history. And it's not that at all. We had the segment with Cody and Stephanie McMahon. And what? I don't get it.
So, my new rule in wrestling, which is don't overreact. What it said, let everybody on the internet overreact, and then go the opposite way and tell everybody you love it to piss everybody off. But yes, this is strange. It's weird. But I do think the fact that, Cody addressed it obviously later in the night.
Which it sounds like WWE did not know Cody was going to do that.
So that's my point. And then you have CM Punk last night on Raw, who cuts an amazing promo talking about Vince McMahon, talking about Ari Emanuel, calling Pat McAfee.
By the way, I'll let you finish it in a second. I know I shit on CM Punk a lot. I call him CM Pinky, but man, that dude can cut a freaking promo. That was an amazing promo last night. I especially liked the bit when he was talking about how Roman has basically failed in the main event 8 times, and yet he's keeps getting these opportunities. That was my favorite line. I don't remember exactly how he phrased it, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes. And I guess my point is, and they're making reference to the fact that SmackDown was rated very low on Cage Match. And they're making reference to the point of the ticket sales because TKO has jacked up the ticket sales. I think we are getting worked into a shoot. And from my perspective, I think this may be all part of a storyline. I think that they are getting the internet community riled up because there's all these reports out there about was the Cody Rhodes promo scripted or not? Was the Pat McAfee promo that he cut before returning about the businesses passed me by on an Instagram Live or an X Live, whatever it was? Was that all part of the plan? I kind of feel like, and CM Punk mentioned The Rock last night. I think we're getting a version on television of Team WWE led by Triple H, versus Team TKO, led by The Rock. And I think that will be the major angle post WrestleMania. That's kind of how I feel right now, is this will all be a work.
There's people even saying like maybe Triple H is gonna get pushed out. I don't know.
And that's why I think they are letting all this speculation come, because they know people are online. There's reports out there. This was like a couple years ago now, that Triple H is on Twitter during Raw checking the online reaction. Like they know the reaction online is different from the ones we've gotten in the arena. How many times have we talked about online? People have been begging for the Cody Rhodes heel turn. And in the arena, Cody is still getting massively cheered for the most part. You know, I get it. Is it weird that out of all people, Pat McAfee is involved? Yeah, but I will also remind everybody out there that I think, was it The Rock's mother or somebody was involved in The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 17 that no one ever talks about. And WWE, I find it funny that people are like, oh, you know, yeah, they have Joey Rowe involved in it now, and there's I Show Speed involved, and there's all these celebrities involved. That is WWE. They have always had celebrities involved. The first WrestleMania of all time, WrestleMania 1, was main evented by Mr. T. So, and I get it. I think people are pissed off that it's this story McAfee's involved in. I don't think it's the fact that they have all these celebrities involved. I think that's what they're taking it out on.
I think it's both, actually, in this case. And I think a lot of the builds to these matches at WrestleMania haven't quite lived up to what they could have been. Granted, like Seth Rollins and Gunther, you can't, that story, you know, maybe you could have built it up a little more, but WWE was hoping Rey Mysterio would be cleared, and they were hoping Braun Breaker would be cleared. So I get that one.
Well, and now the story is Gunther's going to owe Paul Heyman a favor. We know what happened the last time Paul Heyman owed someone a favor.
Yes.
I'll bet you bottom dollar it leads to Gunther and Lesnar at SummerSlam.
Yeah. But like Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio, I feel like, for example, they pulled the trigger way too late on that, because I wanted to see them really tell the story of like Finn saying, I'm the one who brought you into the Judgment Day. I'm the one who took you under my wing.
They sort of did it in more backstage promos than like being in the ring together. And that may be because I think Dom is actually hurt and they're trying to get him cleared for Mania. I will say on that story, I would have kept the Demon a surprise. I think that was a mistake, them announcing the Demon already.
Yeah. And they announced the lineups for the two shows today. Yeah. There's, unlike last year where I was so invested in Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens, I wanted to feel that way about Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton. I did. But there's not that one match where I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to see that.
Oh, for me, there's a few. Drew and Jacob, Punk Roman, Oba and Brock. Absolutely.
No, on that, I'm glad you mentioned Oba and Brock. I think as much as I hate Brock Lesnar, and I still do, I think that has the best build going into WrestleMania. The
ironic thing is that match is going to be less than 5 minutes long. I mean, I would have Brock give a quick F5 to Oba. I'd have Oba kick out at one, pop up, hit him with a fall from grace, and that'd be the match.
Yeah, if Oba does not win that match, something is wrong.
I agree. I think they're going to kick it off night 2 because I think they're going to use the free ESPN hour they have to get people to go over to the app. And if I had to guess, I think Jacob and Drew will probably kick off night 1 because it will be a crazy street fight. You'll get the casuals involved.
Yes, because that's an unsanctioned match. Which the story to that was weird because they made it seem like it was going to be Drew versus Nick Aldis at one point.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And this this is why I think people are mad at this WrestleMania build, because a lot of it didn't go the way we thought it was. And traditionally, we know a lot of the direction coming out of WrestleMania, coming out of the Royal Rumble. This year, we didn't. And I talked about this a little bit today, a little bit earlier on my show. Coming out of the Royal Rumble, we thought Liv Morgan was going to face Raquel Rodriguez, and they were going to do the whole Judgment Day turn. Well, no, actually, Liv's going to face Stephanie. And we thought,
it sounds like Liv and Roxy are both in concussion protocol after how hard they smacked each other.
And we all thought, could Drew face Cody and Jacob at Elimination Chamber? Or could he do it at WrestleMania? Or could they do a 6-pack challenge with Trick Williams and Sami Zayn? No, we get 3 singles matches out of all 6 of those guys instead of the big 6-way. So I think that this was admittedly one of the bumpiest roads to WrestleMania ever. And the build was not perfect. But the bottom line is, as I've always said, I believe this is true about wrestling. The better the build, the less the show actually delivers. And the worse the build, the more the show actually delivers. Because the lesser expectations you have going into it, the more thrilled you will be. There are so many times we are so hyped for this is going to happen, and then it doesn't happen. I think the only time that I can remember something living up to the hype of the build was Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40. And to me, that build was so special that people are now comparing everything in wrestling across every company to that.
So, with Sami Zayn and Trick Williams, I love that we're doing that match, but I hate that they had to sacrifice Carmelo Hayes for it, for example. Why not do the triple threat match? Carmelo has history with Sami Zayn now because Sami took the title from him. Carmelo has long history with him and Trick. So the triple threat makes sense, but nope, it's just going to be straight up Sami versus Trick.
Because I think the story at WrestleMania is those two, you get the double turn. And I think you get Carmelo involved later, whether it's on a SmackDown or at Backlash, you can do a triple threat there. You don't have to do it at WrestleMania.
I think it would have made it better. But
but again, it's like the situation with remember last year, they left off the Street Profits and DIY and the Motor City Machine Guns. Remember the triple threat TLC match? They left it off WrestleMania and they made it the main event of the SmackDown after WrestleMania. That match would have been rushed on WrestleMania. They gave him 45 minutes to an hour commercial free on SmackDown, and it rocked. And they went out there with something to prove because they didn't get on WrestleMania. And yes, WrestleMania is 2 nights, but as we've seen with this 2-night card, not everybody can still get on the card. Last year at this time, Tiffany Stratton and Io Sky, respectively, were the women's champion and the women's world champion. Neither of them will probably have a spot on WrestleMania this year.
Okay, I'm not sure about that. It sounds like Asuka versus Io Sky is going to be at WrestleMania. However, that could change if Nikki Bella is not medically cleared, which would mean the Bellas would be out of that fatal 4-way and the Kabuki Warriors would be in. But from what I've read, Io versus Asuka is going to happen at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I mean, it's a way to get Io on the card. I wouldn't put it on WrestleMania if I was the booker. I don't think everybody deserves to be on WrestleMania. I think even with 2 nights, and I think the roster has never been filled with as much talent, and I think you still got to earn it. And this Io Asuka story has not done anything for me. So if it's on there, great. Be a nice filler match for people in the stadium to go to the bathroom. That's how I feel about it.
I think it's crazy that neither set of tag titles are going to be defended. Because, the Vision are teaming with iShow Speed against LA Knight and the Usos. And R-Truth and Damian Priest aren't defending their titles.
Yeah, I think this WrestleMania card changed multiple times. I think injuries to Brunson Reed affected this card a lot. I think Seth Rollins getting injured back in October, and I know you're saying it's 6 months away. How could that be? I think the Rollins injury messed up a lot of plans for WrestleMania this year, because I think that there was a plan at one point for Roman and Cody. There was a plan for maybe Rollins Punk, maybe Rollins Breaker, or maybe Rollins Reigns. And I think the combination of Rey Mysterio got injured, then Seth Rollins got injured twice, and they just had to make plans. They had to make changes. And this is how we got to some of the people like LA Knight being thrown in a random 6-man tag with the Usos and I Show Speed.
Yeah. But like getting back to the main topic, like I said, I was so excited when Randy won the Elimination Chamber and we got the major heel turn, and Brandon seems to have disappeared.
I'm here.
Okay,
I got lost in my virtual background, apparently.
But it's just like, what are we doing? Like, you could have told a great story. Like, they have so much history together. And instead, we're talking about ticket sales and Randy needs to save wrestling. Like, I don't get it.
This may be act one of the story. And I think the problem is people are so scarred from what happened last year between Cena and Cody, they think the same thing's going to happen again. And it may happen again with Travis Scott. Maybe McAfee plays that role. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. I'm going to sit back and enjoy the ride and see what happens.
I'll probably only be able to watch night 1 of WrestleMania because night 2, I will most likely be working at Cleveland Monsters game. That's not going to end until right when WrestleMania is supposed to start.
Well, or a Cavs game. I mean, so that weekend is the first weekend of the playoffs. The Cavs are going to have a home playoff game at some point.
Well, yeah, but the Monsters are supposed to have Fan Appreciation Day on the 19th at like 3 o'clock.
Oh, I didn't know that. So the Cavs will be Saturday then. Because unless they do like Sunday night, right? They can't really transform the court in like a couple hours, can they?
Usually when they've done that, the Monsters game is at noon, and then the Cavs game is later.
That's what I mean. So I wonder, the Cavs Hawks smell like a Saturday noon game to me. I'm just going to put that out there.
We'll see. But you and I are both going to a pay-per-view this weekend.
We are. TNA Revolution. I sent you notes.
Rebellion.
Rebellion. I apologize.
Revolution is in AEW, which there is also an AEW. There is
an AEW pay-per-view. It's a
Dynasty.
The next week in sports and wrestling is going to be us being consumed by content.
Yes. I will most likely not be able to watch Dynasty because I am going to be working the Cavs game against the Washington Wizards for Fan Appreciation Day. But, there's some really good matches on the card for Dynasty. MJF is defending the AEW World Championship against Kenny Omega. You got Jon Moxley going against Will Ospreay for the AEW Continental Championship. Jamie Hayter is challenging Tekla for the AEW Women's World Championship. Andrade is facing Darby Allin. If Darby wins, he will be the number 1 contender for whoever is the champion coming out of Dynasty. So Dynasty looks like it's going to be a good card. But I don't know if I would have watched it anyway, because, Rebellion was a crap ton of money. My God. And I am so excited for Rebellion.
Wait, how much did you spend for your tickets then? If it's a crap load of money, I'm curious. If you don't want to reveal it on the air, you don't have to.
No, but, I will say it was more so the fees that got me because I bought 4 tickets.
Oh, okay, I got you. See, we just bought 2, so
yeah,
I guess it's not as bad.
Yeah, And it is at Wolstein Center.
I was surprised. I mean, they were very similar to what WWE ticket prices were before TKO hijacked them up. I thought they'd be like below what that was.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be good to have a pay-per-view in the Wolstein Center. Because I've been to like AEW events there. It's a really good venue for wrestling. There's not really a bad seat in that venue.
I've been there one time. It was December of 2010. It was post WWE the house show during the Christmas season. And it was the only time I saw Edge wrestle. There was a triple threat main event steel cage. It was Edge, CM Punk, when he was wearing the mask at that time as part of the Straight Edge Society, and King.
Huh. I've been there a few times for AEW shows. I've seen Jeff Dunham there a few times. I've been to one Cleveland State Vikings men's basketball game there. It's decent. But we're getting
real quick, because we did not get to this. What did you make of Y2J's return?
Definitely unexpected. Because everybody was saying, oh, he's going to come back to WWE. And then, it doesn't entirely surprise me because AEW was in Winnipeg. But the way they brought him back was so funny because Tony Schiavone's in the ring trying to get the contract signing going for MJF and Kenny Omega. The pyro goes off once and he tries to go again. Pyro goes off again. And he's like, what the hell?
Yeah, I'm interested to see if Jericho gets back in the world title picture. Because I know Jericho came back to AEW for obvious reasons. The schedule, the money, creative control, and all that. I'm just interested to see now how they use him.
Yeah, he's going to address his return on Dynamite tomorrow. We'll see what happens with that. I don't expect him to have a match on Dynasty. We'll see. My guess
I just find it weird. I mean, his last few months in AEW before he went on hiatus, he was basically an ROH wrestler.
Yeah. He was the ROH champion, but he lost that to Mark Briscoe.
I thought Tony had a falling out. Apparently not.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for AEW to bring a pay-per-view to Cleveland.
How did we go from Jericho's going to be on the Raw January 6th Stranger Things edition? Jericho's going to be on at the Royal Rumble. Jericho's going to be in the box. Jericho's going to be on Dynamite?
Yeah. And we all thought Jericho was going to be at WrestleMania.
Yeah, so listen, the wrestling world is wild right now. We've gone an hour and 47 minutes and 24 seconds tonight. So one of our longer shows. We did have a lot to get to today, though, in the sports world. Glad to have you back, Josh.
I don't know why I'm in the dark, by the way.
Maybe it's because it's getting dark out by you. I don't know. We'll be back next week to preview WrestleMania, talk about the NBA playoffs, all that and more as the NFL draft and WrestleMania get closer. Have a good week, guys. We'll see you next week on an all-new edition of Championship Rings.
Hopefully you can still see me. Because I'm not John Cena.